There are times in our nation when old rights seem to clash head-on, and folks grow fearful that in saving one liberty, we might trample another. Today, our headlines tell of a well-known reporter, Don Lemon, arrested and charged by the federal government under civil rights laws for what unfolded in a Minnesota church on a chilly Sunday. Some fear this means the silencing of those who seek truth and report the news. Others worry that the sacred peace meant for worship has been broken and wonder who will defend it. These are serious worries, both of them. But the Republic can be saved. History has seen such storms and endured them, not by outrage, but by reason and patience. So let me ask, can America still hold fast to her promise of both freedom and order when they appear to pull against one another? Not all news is black and white, but the strength of the Republic is her unity in the face of hard choices. Let's keep perspective, not lose it. Now, what has happened? Earlier this year, at a church known as City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, worshipers gathered as they always do, seeking comfort, faith, and peace. It was a winter morning, families in pews, children fidgeting, sunlight streaking through stained glass. That day, demonstrators entered and disrupted the service. They raised voices, shouted slogans, "ICE out!" protesting that one of the church's pastors works for immigration and customs enforcement. Don Lemon, a journalist long known to many across our country, was there. Prosecutors say he did more than observe. They say he encouraged efforts to keep the protests secret, even helped plan. Lemon's lawyers and Lemon himself say that's not so. They say he was there in the full and open work of news gathering, not planning or leading anything. The federal government now charges Mr. Lemon and 8 others, not just with ordinary trespass, but under the full weight of civil rights law. Their claim that this protest did not only disturb, but interfered with the First Amendment rights of worshipers. Picture, if you will, a church on Sunday morning, white steeple, rows of neighbors in coats, Bibles on laps. Now picture that same peace, broken by loud voices. The congregation startled, unsure. Some see injustice, some see free speech. The Attorney General says their arrests defend the right to worship without fear. Civil rights organizations and fellow journalists say that pressing these charges goes too far, chilling the press, turning a reporter into a criminal. Now, the law here is not simple. Experts point out that civil rights statutes were shaped, in other times, mostly to stop acts of hate or to protect worship from true violence and intimidation. Not often has the law been stretched to cover the press as it gathers the news. Within that courtroom, 2 truths meet: the freedom to report and the freedom to worship. One sacred, the other essential. This is the test of self-government. Think of a courthouse in Minnesota, marble halls, winter coats, and folks waiting anxiously for a judge to appear. Think, too, of journalists at small wooden desks, scribbling notes, trying to piece together the whole truth. I have seen in my years, and in American history, how easily suspicion can take root. When the government acts, some fear power is abused. When old boundaries are crossed by protesters, others fear an unraveling of order and peace. But let us recall, in this land, power is always on loan. Government belongs to the people, not the other way round. The rules that protect a preacher in prayer also guard the reporter with a notepad. Now, as I understand it, the government insisted on strict bond for Lemon. Yet the judge released him and said, "Return for trial, travel as you must, your fate is not yet sealed." The other defendants, too, were met with bond then freedom before their trial, a sign that courts are built not for punishment alone, but for the weighing of evidence. Picture for a moment a family at breakfast, the morning paper open, TV in the corner with breaking news. Their faces are tense, some fear chaos, some fear crackdown. Yet all of them, in their way, love this country and want her safe. Here's what is still in dispute. Was Mr. Lemon, on that day, a conspirator, urging secrecy and joining a cause? Or was he doing his honest work, trying to capture events as they truly happened? The evidence now lies with the courts. Critics worry that these charges hint at something deeper, perhaps about who is chosen for prosecution and how. Some think politics and old grudges play a part. The Department of Justice, for its part, claims only to protect the right to worship freely. Not all voices agree. In the church, some welcome the prosecution as defense of sacred order. On the street, many worry about what future reporters may face when seeking to cover protests in public and private places alike. Let us bring the matter home. In towns all across this nation, from the plains of Minnesota to city blocks in Los Angeles, these rights do not live only in law books. They live in our daily lives. Picture a group of students in a school gym, pressed close over a debate, some with hands raised, all wanting to be heard. One child asks a hard question, another tries to keep order so things don't fall apart. This, too, is America. Rights and duties do not end at the schoolhouse door, nor at the church, nor at the press table. Now the courts will rule in time. But we, the people, must keep thinking and weighing what kind of freedom we cherish and what kind of peace we expect. Let us recall the words of the founders. Both worship and the press are guarded as pillars, neither to be thrown down for the sake of the other. Think back to a small-town main street at sunset. Shops closing, townsfolk gathering at a diner booth, coffee poured, old friends talking over the latest events. They do not always agree, but they know that if the town turns on itself, everyone loses, so they choose respect, even in argument. So must the Republic endure. We cannot save one liberty by burning another. And so, as we carry forward, the task falls not to one man or one group alone, but to each citizen, each leader, each judge, and each storyteller. We must be measured, keeping the hand of government both firm and fair, so that faith does not fear interruption, nor reporting fear arrest for doing what is right. Imagine a young reporter, late at night, typing out notes by a single lamp, wondering if the story of the day will shine truth or call down trouble. That loneliness of conscience is not only the burden of a lone reporter. It belongs to every citizen who wonders, in uncertain times, how best to do right. Picture a teacher, late in her classroom after the children have gone, erasing lesson notes from a chalkboard, wondering how to explain these times without sowing fear. This is the labor of those who care for the future, who wish to teach not only facts, but fairness. The law in these matters can feel heavy and slow. The wheels of justice grind, they do not gallop. Still, as each side speaks its piece, we as a people must refuse simple answers. Not all news is black and white. In this case, even wise folk do not agree. That is why we must watch carefully and think together, never letting passion carry us beyond reason. The judge, in the end, must decide based not on noise, but on proof. The attorneys must argue with honesty, not fury. The press must seek out truth, not chase scandal. And the public, we the people, need both patience and humility. Picture a retired couple sitting on a small porch as the sun goes down, radio playing low. They have seen protest and change before. They worry for their grandkids, hope for fair leaders, and cling to their faith in old American wisdom. Let's hear the other side. This is the slow, steady way of democracy, sometimes too slow, but safer than the rush to judge. What are we really asked to protect? Not only a church's right to peace, or a journalist's right to work, but the very soil in which both rights can grow side by side. If we forget that, we risk giving up too much for the promise of calm, or risking too much for the thrill of action. Imagine a group of friends in a small-town coffee shop, one holding up a newspaper, another scrolling headlines on a phone. They read, they talk, they argue, but no one storms out. In that quiet, daily work of disagreement, without fear, freedom lives. Justice, I've said, is not revenge. Protection of one group's liberty cannot come by stomping on the next. The law ought to act as a fence, not a cage, a help, not a trap. For those who fear that charging a reporter marks the start of more silence, know this. In our land, mistakes can be named and changed. Courts can correct, laws can be weighed, and new leaders can be chosen. The Republic has lived through deeper storms. But for those who fear that places of worship will no longer be safe, know this as well. Americans, almost above all, treasure their churches, synagogues, mosques, and meeting houses. When violence or trouble comes to any sanctuary, people of all beliefs unite in sorrow and resolve. Both fears are real, and both have honest hearts behind them. So then, how do we walk this narrow path? How do we honor both the seeker of truth and the keeper of peace? It starts with restraint, with listening, with a willingness to slow down rather than speed up. Think of a police officer standing outside a church after a protest, watching as families quietly leave the building. Her face is calm but watchful. She knows each side's pain and wants only to keep them safe. She does not wish for force or fame, but for an end to strife. History has seen this before. In my time, newspapers were shut down, editors jailed. Many praised it in fear of chaos. But I knew then, as I do now, that a republic strong enough for self-government must stand strong enough to hear arguments, even loud and troubling ones. Yet we cannot call every loud voice news, nor every clash progress. We must ask, was there harm? Was there real violence or just hard words? And if harm was done, who must answer for it, and how? Let us be slow to claim the rightness of our own side, fast to recognize the dignity of others. The basic deal of America is simple, if not always easy. You have your say, I have mine. The law will judge between us, not the mob. This case, like all such cases, will fade from newsprint. But the choices we make, how quick we are to judge or to pardon, to shout or to listen, these shape our common life. Not all questions can be settled by the courts. Some must be answered at supper tables, in letters to the editor, in quiet talks between neighbors. Think of a mother and daughter riding together in an old pickup, heading home after church, talking about what is right and what is wise. For all our technology, the hardest work remains soft and slow, the work of hearts. If we lose our mercy and patience, we become quick to wrath, easy to divide. Let us be careful, but not timid. When government makes a charge, it ought to show clear reasons. When the press tells a story, it ought to check its facts. When a church asks for peace, it ought to be given, so long as no injustice is hiding inside those walls. America's strength is her unity. Through many storms, that unity has been tested and at times nearly broken. But again and again, people have found a way to argue and forgive, to hold both law and liberty in their arms without dropping either. Picture a flag snapping in the cold wind outside a courthouse as folks gather beneath it. Some to protest, some to pray, some just to watch. The flag belongs to all of them, not just to those with the loudest voice. And so it is with our rights. If we defend free speech but forget religious freedom, we gut the promise of our Constitution. If we protect churches but muzzle the press, we shrink the space where truth may stand. The Republic can be saved. It does not need shouting, but a steady hand. What then should we remember? That the choice is not only between lemon and the government, or between one Sunday morning and the next. It is the larger choice between panic and patience, suspicion and trust, rage and reason. Let the courts decide the law. Let citizens keep watch. Do not rush to blame, nor to fear. Remember, tomorrow's peace is built from today's restraint. Outrage may be loud, but it burns quickly. Patience builds brick by brick. So when the headlines shout of new trouble, pause. Wait for proof, for arguments, for context. Let your judgment be sturdy, not rushed. Small towns need this. Big cities do too. The quiet wisdom of everyday people will do more to save our shared life than any single trial ever could. Think one last time of the child peering out a frosted window at first light, watching the street wake up, trusting that the adults will keep order, but hoping that kindness too will not be forgotten. That in the end is our lasting test, not if we can punish fast, but if we can balance justice with mercy. Not if we can be loud, but if we can be wise. The Republic still stands, not by anger and fear, but by reason and hope. So I ask you, friends, in days of trouble and argument, what kind of example will you set? In your own home, your own work, your own talk with those who differ, will you defend rights with patience? Will you keep peace without surrendering truth? What, at your deepest, do you want your America to look like, for yourself and for generations still to come?